Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, continuing our schedule previews of our way too early top 25 teams. And today we're taking a look at just our second group of 5 team, and that is the 19th ranked Memphis Tigers, who are coming off an unbelievable and historic 2019 campaign. As we all know, Mike Norvell left Memphis to go take the head coaching position at Florida State. But the job he did with the Tigers last year cannot go unnoticed and certainly cannot be forgotten, as he led Memphis to a 12-2 record and went to the Cotton Bowl as the highest-ranked Group of 5 conference champion. The Tigers ultimately fell to Penn State 53-39 in that Cotton Bowl, but held their own for the majority of that game, and as we mentioned, won the American Athletic Conference. Now Ryan Silverfield takes over. He was the interim head coach in that bowl game against Penn State, and then shortly after that, the interim tag was removed. And I think that was a fantastic hire and a fantastic move by the Memphis administration to promote from within, especially with the amount of talent that Memphis has returning in 2020. Under Mike Norvell, even before Mike Norvell, with guys like Justin Fuente, Memphis was known for having potent offenses. And they may have one of the best offenses in the entire country this year, as their top 3 players return, including quarterback Brady White, running back Kenneth Gainwell, and their top wide receiver in DeMonte Coxey. Those 3 return from an offense that averaged 40.4 points per game last year. Good enough for 8th in the entire nation. Memphis is known for their offense. They can compete with anybody offensively. The key for them is going to be, can they step up defensively? Can they step up defensively? They did so a little bit last year in 2019. Can Silverfield keep the momentum going into 2020? We take a look at their schedule here. For, many people look at Group of 5 teams and say their schedules aren't that bad. It's not that difficult of a conference. The American Athletic Conference, many want to consider a Power 6 because of how good that conference is. Memphis is in the American Athletic Conference, and their schedule is one of the toughest within that conference this year. And we start here right off the bat in Week 1 against Arkansas State, a renewed rivalry between the Red Wolves and the Tigers. They used to meet every year, haven't met since 2013, so it's kind of neat to see this rivalry being renewed between a high-powered Memphis offense and one of the better offenses within the Sun Belt in Arkansas State. So a fun one to kick off the season. Certainly not going to be a cupcake and an easy win for the Tigers by any means. They then traveled to Purdue in Week 2. Purdue had a lot of high expectations going into 2019, but injury after injury after injury saw the Boilermakers just miss out on the postseason. You really can't blame that on Jeff Brom and the coaching. You can't help injuries. And hopefully Purdue will be back to 100%, hopefully be able to crack the postseason this year, and will certainly give the Tigers a tough test, especially at home. So pretty tough games right off the bat there. Then you've got Houston here in Week 3. Houston within the American Athletic Conference. Yes, De'Aaron King transferred to Miami, but Dana Holgorsen now entering year 2. Surprised a lot of people by leaving West Virginia to go back to Houston, but now in year 2, hopefully getting his system in place and will get the Cougars back to relevancy within this American Athletic Conference. And luckily for Memphis, they do host Arkansas State and Houston, the only road game being at Purdue. They get Texas San Antonio in Week 4. Shouldn't be much of an issue there, a team that will be improving over the next few years. And then at SMU on October 1st, that's where things start to get really difficult. And we'll get to it in a second. There's one key stretch, I'm sure many of you have already figured it out, that will kind of define this season for Memphis football. It's going to be the toughest and most challenging stretch for Ryan Silverfield his first year as head coach. But it does not begin here with SMU, even though this is a game that will certainly be circled on both teams' calendars, maybe more so SMU than Memphis, because last year we saw a thriller between the Mustangs and the Tigers. College game day came to Memphis, and Mike Norvell's squad got the win, winning 54-48. And that was enough, ultimately, to get Memphis that New Year's Six bowl spot. They had to win the AAC, of course, but had they not won that game, they probably wouldn't have even made the conference championship. We'll explain why here in a minute. So a big game on the road at SMU, back-to-back road games in the state of Texas. So this stretch right here, first 5 games for Memphis, not going to be easy by any means. One of the best teams out of the Sun Belt, an improved Purdue team, conference games against Houston and SMU, then an improving Texas San Antonio team. So not easy for Memphis by any means. The key stretch for them comes after the bye week, though. And they're very lucky they get that bye week between SMU and Central Florida. The key stretch begins with Central Florida. It ends on November 14th against Navy. So almost a month-long stretch that's going to be so key and so difficult, really, for the Tigers. Going to really test them in this 2020 season. We start here with Central Florida. Many have them pegged to potentially win the conference in 2020. They're going to be a very elite team, and like Memphis, they're going to be a very explosive offensive team. We've seen that. We saw that under Scott Frost. We've seen it again under Josh Heupel during his time there. Memphis was lucky enough to avoid Central Florida last year since they were in different divisions. But in 2018, they lost to Central Florida 2 times. Lost to them once in the regular season, lost to them again in the conference championship game. Luckily, Memphis hosts them in Memphis. They're coming off a bye week. They get to host the Knights in Memphis, which is going to be maybe enough for them to get the win there. They then stay at home and face off against Temple. Keep in mind, Memphis' only regular season loss last year was to the Owls, losing that game 30-28. Memphis would have had an undefeated regular season had they not lost by 2 points to Temple, who was really just mediocre last year. Wasn't elite by any means, but somehow was able to knock down the Tigers and hold them to just 28 points. Keep in mind, they averaged over 40 points per game last year. They get Temple at home, though, and you know that game is certainly circled on the Tigers' schedule, a big-time revenge game there. And then arguably the biggest game on their schedule comes right here on Halloween at Cincinnati. We know last year Memphis got the best of Cincinnati twice. Kind of a similar situation to that Central Florida matchup we saw in 2018. But this time Memphis was on the better side of things, defeating Cincinnati by 10 in the season finale, and then the very next week having to play them again in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, and then winning that game 29-24. Cincinnati is a team, though, with Luke Fickell at the helm, that many believe will win the American Athletic in 2020. They're that good. They are very, very talented. So much experience returning from a very talented team last year, a team that did make the conference championship, a team that did win their bowl game in dominating fashion over Boston College. And you look here from Luke Fickell's squad, they get to host Memphis. Last time Cincinnati had a big-time game like this, especially within the conference, was just last year against Central Florida. The Bearcats hosted the Knights, and they won that game. And that was enough to get them the division crown and send them to the conference championship game. This could be a preview of the conference championship game yet again, but this time Memphis has to travel to the Bearcats. Going to be a very difficult matchup there. They got South Florida in between the Cincinnati and Navy game. Might be able to take care of the Bulls fairly easily as they won that game 49-10 last year. And then they travel to Navy, who Memphis defeated 35-23 at home last year. But keep in mind, Navy is a team that went 11-2 and 7-1 in conference play. Had Navy come into Memphis and won in 2019, Navy would have been in the conference championship last year and not Memphis. It was a tie at the top of the Western Division, and because Memphis held that tiebreaker, they played Cincinnati, and because they beat Cincinnati, they went to the Cotton Bowl, a New Year's Six bowl game. Huge game here. Huge opponents for Memphis in a very short period of time. UCF, not going to be easy. Temple, always boasting a strong defense, not going to be easy, especially when you rely so much on your offense. Road games against Cincinnati and Navy, who always perform well. It's a tough stretch, and this will define Memphis' season. While the first 5 games are no cakewalk either, tough road games against SMU, Navy, Cincinnati, and then a road game against a Power 5 squad in Purdue, you might be looking at a Memphis team that probably is not going to be able to repeat at 12-2 like they did last year. They close out the season against UT Martin and then a road game at Tulane, who's a very solid team. Willie Fritz doing a phenomenal job down there, but Memphis did win that game 47-17 in 2019. So, of course, history does not mean anything. What happened last year Does not mean anything for the next year, but certainly something to keep in mind, especially when you look at returning starters, coaches, so forth, so on. The FPI, the Football Power Index, has Memphis finishing 9-3, which would give them a chance to finish with a 10-win season in Ryan Silverfield's first year as head coach. To me, that's not bad at all. Compared to last year's schedule, this schedule is light years tougher. Light years tougher. So to expect Memphis to win 10, 11, 12 regular season games in 2020 is almost unrealistic. 9-3, very, very respectable. Still a very solid chance that they can make the American Athletic Conference Championship, depending how other teams in that Western Division fare. Ryan Silverfield certainly has his work cut out for him in 2020. The schedule does not necessarily do him any favors, but the one thing that does do him favors, though, are the returning starters he has on his roster. And with that big three on offense and a defense that I do believe will improve and continue to improve over the year, anything is possible down in Memphis. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out everything down in the description. We have exclusive college football news, content, offers that you do not want to miss. So we definitely want to hear from you. We definitely want you to check those out so you don't miss out on anything and continue to stay in the loop. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.